Hey guys, welcome. We're gonna start in a few minutes. Let me know if the sound's good, if the music's good, if it's not too loud, not too crazy. Today we're gonna talk about 3 steps of becoming a self-taught web developer. Is it possible? In 3 steps only. We'll find out. But let me know in the comments how you guys doing. We're gonna start soon. I'm just getting the final steps here ready. So excited to have all of you guys here. Just gotta set it up on my iPad so I could see the comments. But hello everyone. Make sure you guys get those questions ready. Make sure you guys have your coffee ready or tea, whatever it is. I cheated today. I didn't make mine at home. I got takeout. It's because I'm like, it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta get whatever you can. The music, I got Stream Beats. It's on Spotify. It's actually pretty neat because it's music you could use without having to worry about, paying royalty on it. So it's kind of cool. So if you check out Stream Beats on Spotify, that's what I do. But it's pretty cool, But we're gonna start shortly in a few minutes. But definitely prepare your questions. In today's video, I want to talk about the general 3 steps of what you need to do to get your job as a web developer. Let me know if this is something you guys are currently doing or you've been working already, and it'll be kind of cool to hear your side. If you already got a job, how you got there, what did you do. It's going to be super excited. And again, let me know if you guys could hear me well. Let me know if the music's not too loud. Make sure that everything is cool and working great, except when it's not working. All right. There comes the music again. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out my comments section here on YouTube. I'll just log in as my other account and watch myself on the live stream. And that's how I'll know if everything works. Here we go. Anyway, what's up everybody? How's everybody doing today? Hello to Anonymous, Alex, Adrian, Healthy Coder, welcome. Q, what's up? Logic Indie, Creating with Code, what's up? I'm originally Healthy Coder. I'm originally from Russia. I was born in Moscow. I mean, I've been living in US forever now, practically American, but I still speak Russian to my family, like my parents. But I've been here for a long time. So, but it is what it is, But before starting in web development, I used to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. That's actually what I did for most of my life. And so if my face kind of looks scratched up, it's because I tried to practice some Jiu-Jitsu. Got beat up a little bit. But the point is I decided to switch careers into web development because I got hurt all the time at work. And, being 40 years old and being in chronic pain is just not something that I wanted to live with. And Also, my fiance, her family is in Thailand. I still have a lot of family in Russia. So I wanted to do something which allows me to work remotely when I can and give me a little bit more freedom to work from home or to be able to travel and still be productive. So that's kind of like how I got involved into web development. Do I speak Portuguese? Man, no, I don't speak Portuguese, but hilariously enough, when someone comes in and like we'll have like Royce Gracie come in or one of the Gracie family guys come in and they'll teach a class, I'll pick up the Portuguese or the Brazilian accent and then I'll start teaching and people will be like, are you from, Brazil? Do you speak Portuguese? I'm like, no, I just pretty good at emulating people's accents without realizing that I do that. But that's pretty hilarious, so funny. Same goals, fantastic, that's the way you do it. So we're going to get going, get started. I'm pretty excited about today's show. And again, the most important part about the shows that we do here is not so much me like giving you my advice and telling you what's up. It's more about you guys asking questions as well, so we could have a good conversation and actually do some stuff that provides a lot of value. And let me know, guys, if my stream is good. Like the place that I'm in right now, our connection sometimes is not as strong as it likes to be. So sometimes you might see me go in and out or the image freezes. So there's not much I could do. But when I'm back in Texas in 2 weeks, I have pretty awesome internet connection there. So things are going to be much, much better. So hopefully the stream will hold strong and we'll be able to, have a good conversation. So guys, I wanted to talk about 3 steps of getting into web development. And, there's many different paths to do it. And this is more of like a general outline, what 3 phases you're going to go through on your path. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get started talking about it. And when you guys have a question or have a comment, just let me know, stop me. I'm going to look at the screen once in a while to see your comments. So the 3 steps in the most general sense. Number 1, you're a complete beginner. You know nothing about coding. So number 1, it's learning whatever you need to learn to be able to be productive. So it's like an example, if I want to be a front-end developer, I need to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and some sort of, library like React, could be Angular, could be Vue. So those are your most important things that you must know. So that's phase 1, is building the knowledge in your domain that's going to allow you to be productive enough to be able to get a job. So that's step 1, and we'll go more into details in a moment, but just give you the whole overview. Now step 2, it's like, learning those things is not enough. You actually have to be able to build stuff. So step 2 is actually building projects for your portfolio. So you want to do is you want to have 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio that showcase your skill in your domain, right? You need to be able to build the things that are going to be required of you at work as a junior software engineer. And number 3, it's your ability to get the job. And the 3rd step is basically everything that goes into being able to get an interview and pass the interview, which could include making sure you have a good LinkedIn profile, making sure you have a very well-written resume, and more importantly, this is where you would practice getting better at algorithmic and data structure questions that you might be asked in the interview. So the basic idea is that step 3 is basically interview prep. So step 1, learn the language, learn what you need to know to be able to be productive at the job that you want. Step 2, make sure you build projects for your portfolio, that you have 3 to 5 things in your portfolio that you could show your potential employee. And number 3, start doing interview prep, which also takes into account making sure you have a good LinkedIn profile, making sure you have a good resume, and making sure that you're prepping for interview. Are you doing practice interview questions? Are you learning data structures, algorithms? And unless you have a portfolio built, I would leave algorithm and data structures till the end. So let's look at the comments here. see what's up. Nice. Stream has been solid so far. Fantastic. What's the last show you have watched online? Awesome thoughts. Okay. What's the last show you have watched online? Like, what do you mean, what is the last show I have watched online? You mean like on Netflix or stuff like that? Or I need more information on that question. I'd love to answer that, but not sure. Unless my show. Do I watch my shows? No. Let's see here. Krishna, Harry, hey, I'm 35. I'm learning JS, aiming to learn React, Redux, and React Native. What do you reckon about my path? You reckon better path? So I think you're on the right path. You have a lot of stuff that you just named there, and so that's a lot of tech to learn. What I would say is learn JavaScript. Make sure you're comfortable with HTML and CSS, and just do React. Don't even worry about Redux at the moment. Just learn React, React hooks, and how to use React Context API to manage state, and then save all the other stuff for later, Redux and React Native. Just focus on something a little bit more streamlined so you could build, 3 to 5 projects in that technology stack and put on your resume so you could apply your jobs. Unless you just want to go into mobile development with React, then yeah, you have to do React Native, but I would not recommend doing it like right away. I hope that answers your question. Oh, shows on Netflix. Believe it or not, I don't watch too much Netflix or shows on TV. The last show I did watch, I thought was kind of ridiculously crazy, is on HBO, Raised by Wolves. I thought that was a cool show, but I normally don't watch Netflix. I normally don't watch shows. If I'm going to watch something, believe it or not, I watch coding tutorials for entertainment, and that's how nerdy I am. And it's not that I do it because that's what I want. I do it because I'm 40 years old and I only been working at my company for a year. And for me to stay competitive and to continue to learn, every free moment I have, I'm either focusing on coding, learning to code, or having a chat with you guys here on YouTube, having fun. So if you're just starting out, let's say, and you don't have a job as a web developer, the best advice I could give you is to make sure that you're coding every day, of course. But number 2, if you have activities like video games, like watching Netflix or whatever, I'm not saying that you have to stop them cold turkey, but I would definitely make sure that you keep it to the minimum, like until you get your job. So I'm not saying you should sacrifice everything, but I am saying that you should make sure that you put your priorities straight. And if you can code more rather than watching less Netflix, that's what you do. And that's something that I do, and to be honest with you, it is a struggle, but that's something that I actively make a decision on and choose to do. So yeah, so let's see here. And yeah, don't be shy, ask questions in the comments. This is going to be a pretty relaxed chat today. I kind of gave you my whole spiel on the 3 steps already, but we could go into more details. So the first step, right? And again, feel free to ask comments and questions and to open up the conversation. But the first step, like I was saying, if you, for instance, decide that you want to be a front-end web developer and you specifically decide, I'm going to do React. That's what I want to do. That's what's popular in my area, and this is where I want to that's what I want to get my job in. So you should only focus on those things. So if that's what you're going to do, you obviously need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you also have to learn React. And as you do that, this is going to sound weird, but then when you're like, man, I wonder if Python is good. I wonder if PHP is great, or maybe I should do something else. That's where you have to be like, no, that's not what I'm trying to get my job in. I'm trying to get my job as a front-end React developer. So all those other technologies you have to put on hold. So you need to be able to have projects that are in the technology that you're going to get hired for. So you should be doing stuff in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. Everything else that's extra is just going to slow you down and spread you thin. You need to be really focused. Another example could be like, I know in my area, PHP and WordPress is very popular, right? So if that's something that people are hiring for in your area, you know what? That's what you're going to be learning. You're going to be learning, obviously, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you're also going to be learning PHP and WordPress, because that's the jobs, let's say, as an example, are in your area. And so to learn React at the same time makes no sense for you, because that's not the stack you're looking to get hired. In your case, to be more like better time spent continue on PHP and learning how to connect SQL databases via PHP, if that's what you're doing. Another example could be like, oh, I want to learn ASP.NET with C#. And you know what? That's what you focus on. If you want to be a C# ASP.NET developer, you're going to start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and the C# programming language, and learning how to use the Visual Studio IDE to code, learning the environment, and learning about the frameworks that the ASP.NET framework that will allow you to build projects using C#. And at that point, unless you're able to build 3 to 5 projects using that tech stack, there's no reason for you to learn React. So the biggest mistake people make on the first step is try to learn everything at once. And all you have to do is just look and see what is the most important thing to learn based on the things that are available in your area for jobs. So if it's ASP.NET, that's what you learn. If it's React and frontend, that's what you learn. If it's PHP stack, that's what you learn. But don't try to learn all three. And I hope that clears up a couple of things. But that's step one. Learn what you need to know for your domain. So let's come back to the comments here. So how long did it take me to learn JS? My progress was very slow because I just had that perfectionist mindset where I was like, you need to know everything. You have to be able to build every possible thing that someone shows you in JavaScript. And the truth is, that was the wrong approach for me. What I would say is, when you're learning JavaScript, you need to learn the basics of the language, basically the syntax for the language, how to work with all different data structures like strings, numbers, then working with arrays and objects, being able to create functions, understanding, like array methods, and then like for loops and stuff like that. And basically the basics. Don't try to do everything. And that should take you, if you're very committed, you could do it in, about 2 to 3 months. The basics, you know what I mean? But the secret to learning JavaScript is not spending too much time on it. So the mistake I made, I actually kept learning JavaScript like 2-3 years on and off. And basically, I kept doing tutorials. I wasn't able to build anything from scratch. And it wasn't until my friend told me, it's like, look, you're trying to get a React job. Just knowing JavaScript alone is not enough. So he got me started on React. So once I knew the basics of JavaScript, I started building my React, or learning React. And then when I would get stuck in React, I would go back and learn a little bit of JavaScript. So you don't have to be perfect at JavaScript. You just have to know the basic syntax to know enough to continue moving forward. But for everybody, it's different. Everybody learns differently. What I would say, just keep at it and make sure that as you're learning JavaScript, don't be shy trying to experiment like in CodePen and building stuff. So I hope that helped to answer that question. But I mean, it really depends on how much time you're spending. Like, I know people, they're like, I learned JavaScript. It took me only like a month to learn. For me, it was a couple of years because I wasn't consistent with my studying. But realistically, I think in 2-3 months, you could definitely know the basics. Hey, great question, Yagesh. Does it replace? So Context API is just, it doesn't replace Redux. There are certain cases where Redux will still make more sense, but the benefit of Context API is that in a lot of cases where people would normally use Redux, you could use Context API now. And so what I would say, this is like what my friend tells me. He's like, if you don't know the problem that Redux fixes, like if you can't explain to me why you need Redux, then you don't need to use Redux. The common mistake with Redux, people think it's cool. They're like, Redux, it sounds cool. We must implement it in our application. And the truth is, if you don't know the specific problem that Redux is solving, there's no point of putting in your application. And nowadays, with Context API, everything that you could do for the most part with Context API, for most cases, like 85, 90% of applications, Context API will be perfect. And the good news, if you do get hired and you start working on a company, they're like, look, we're building this project with Redux. Once you know JavaScript, once you understand Context API, and you have more experience with programming, learning Redux is much easier. What's hard though is trying to learn Redux as a beginner while still learning React. Do not do that. I made that mistake, and basically it took me way too long to understand React or Redux because I was trying to do them together at the same time, and it's just too confusing. So if you've built, let's say, 2 to 3 projects with React, then I would say on your 4th or 5th projects you could try and use Redux. But nowadays it's not that important to, you know, be able to know Redux right away, because, you know, Context API is just that amazing. Hey Christopher, hi guys, 2nd week in a row. Last week was awesome. Man, thank you. I try to make these podcasts fun. I'm still learning, still new to this stuff. So if you guys having fun, that's awesome. And listen, I appreciate all of you guys here that are joining me. It doesn't matter how many guys of you here. I will continue doing these podcasts, even one person watching. But what makes these podcasts fun is the fact that you guys asking questions. So don't be shy and, you know, jump in the comments, you know, let me know. By the way, if anybody's interested and want to come on live and have a chat with me live on the podcast here, that's always welcome. Just let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Man, I'll send you a link and you could jump in and we could have a great conversation. Always open. So man, love these questions. How much CSS should I know before starting JS? So a basic example of what I would say is you should be able to take a basic website that you found online and recreate it. So I could show you this example. And the reason why I have this example available is because this is something we're working on in our Slack group. So we have a Slack group where we're focusing on basically building projects for your portfolio. We're starting with simple HTML and CSS, and then we go from there. But let me show you what we have here. So this is the website that I found online. So this is not the one that I built, but notice just the basic layout. It's just a simple website. Now, at the beginning, before even jumping to JavaScript, some of this behavior like slide and stuff, that's all JavaScript. But the general HTML and CSS here, like this effect on when you should hover over. Yep, you see this hover effect? That's HTML and CSS. Like the hover on this button, HTML and CSS only. You know, this hover is done with HTML and CSS. And so what I would say, if you are able to find a website like this and recreate it on your own, that's plenty of CSS that you have to know. Then move on to learning JavaScript. So in our Slack group, and if you guys want to join, just email me at codingafter30@gmail.com and I'll add you to it. But the whole point of that Slack channel is to help you guys build 5 projects for your portfolio. So the first project is simple HTML and CSS, and so this is something that I'm working with alongside with you guys. This is actually my version. Obviously I didn't put my picture, but you could see that it almost looks exactly alike. And that's what I'm saying, is like you should be able to find a website that you like and see if you could recreate it. So this is not done. I still have to finish the experience, hire me section, and all this other stuff, contact and the footer. But the whole point is you should be comfortable at recreating a website with basic HTML and CSS. And once you're able to do that, you could move on to JavaScript. So while I have you guys here, and we're gonna come back, those of you who just joining us on the 3 steps that I've mentioned at the beginning of this video to become a web developer in 2021. But since you're on this topic of HTML and CSS, so the 5 projects you should work on building, and this is what we're doing on Slack. And I'm not saying you have to build these. This is just something that I planned for our Slack members. Number 1 is your basic HTML and CSS project. And that's the one that I just showed you here on this video. So the goal there is just to be familiar with enough HTML and CSS to be able to find most of the websites, not anything complex with animations, but the 80% of websites that you see online, and be able to recreate them yourself with HTML and CSS. That's step one. Step two is to take that project, HTML and CSS project, or our second project, I should say, not step two. Our second project is to add some simple JavaScript functionality. It could be adding like an image slider, doing a mobile menu that's handled by JavaScript. Simple stuff, nothing too crazy, because we don't want to be building complete applications with vanilla JavaScript, because nobody does it these days unless it's small widget apps. And then the third project that we build is jumping and taking that HTML and CSS and JavaScript project that we just did and convert it into a React project, right? So making that website that used HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript, now make it use React. And that's our introduction to React. The fourth project that we built is going to be a complete React app, which the main focus is learning about APIs and how to consume data from an API. And the final project, which is our main project, is going to be a React application where you guys are going to set up your own backend. You don't have to build it from scratch. You could use something like Firebase or Strapi, or if you really, really want to, you could build it from scratch, but there's no point at this time, and basically have ability to show basic CRUD application, basically create, read, update, and delete. So you should, and some basic authentication. So you should be able to have, you know, users log into that application, be able to post a blog, and other users could comment on it, but something like that. So those are the 5 projects we're building, and if that's something that like interests you, you could send me an email at codingafter30@gmail.com, but that's the plan. Let's see comments here. Hey, thank you for your comment. Does knowing only the basics also apply to HTML and CSS? Feeling overwhelmed with CSS now? Yeah, like it does. Like I just mentioned before, CSS will take you a little bit to learn, but once you're learning CSS or anything in this matter of fact, you should be building stuff on your own alongside. So when you're learning HTML and CSS, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but when you're doing tutorials, here's the new way I started doing tutorials, right? I have my tutorial, right, and I have the video of the tutorial. I watch the video from start to finish, and I take notes. I have my notebook here somewhere. Where did it go? And if it's not on my notebook, I take notes on my iPad. Like, I have my iPad, and I'm watching a tutorial, and I'm taking notes on my tutorial. I'm taking notes on the class, like right here. I'll show you. So these are my notes. So I watch the tutorial and I take notes. Then I stop the video and I try to build a thing on my own from my notes. So don't follow tutorials. If you forget something, go back, review the tutorial, and then try to recreate the thing on your own. So what you don't want to do, and unless you're like a complete beginner, when you're doing a tutorial, don't just mindlessly copy the code that the instructor's writing, because you're not learning anything in the process. You're just copying. It's like, if I want to trace a hand, I would put my hand and I would do this. I would trace it with a pencil. That's what you're doing when you're following tutorials. And then as a complete beginner, no shame in doing that. But as soon as you can, start taking notes and start watching the video, turning it off so you don't have it as reference, and then try to type out the code by recalling it from your mind. Because when you're following a tutorial and you're just typing what the instructor is typing, you're missing the most important part of learning, which is being able to make sense of that information and recall it on your own. So when you're learning HTML and CSS, make sure you're trying to build those things on your own, and that's going to help you make things stick and help you to move forward much quicker than just going tutorial after tutorial. But yes, when you're learning HTML or CSS, basics are super important, and once you are able to do basic things with HTML and CSS, like I showed you, recreate a simple site, right away move on to JavaScript. You guys have to remember this, like when you're learning to program, especially like me, I'm much older, and I'm trying, like my goal was to switch careers. I didn't have like all the time in the world, so I didn't want to I didn't have the luxury to spend as much time as I can on HTML and CSS. I didn't have luxury to spend as much time as I can on JavaScript. So what I actively started to do is to push my learning. So I would learn enough HTML and CSS to be able to build that thing that I needed to build. Then I would add just enough JavaScript to it to make it do one simple thing, and then I would try to recreate the same thing with React. And it would be like a very simplistic website or whatever thing I'm building. Then I would go back, learn a little bit more HTML and CSS, a little bit more JavaScript, and a little bit more React. And I would do this kind of hopping over and over, but I would not just spend as much time I can in HTML and never get to JavaScript. I would learn a little bit of HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of React. Then I'm stuck at React because I don't know enough JavaScript. I would go back, learn a little bit of JavaScript. Now, like, I'm stuck with my HTML and CSS. I would go back and learn a little bit more HTML and CSS. And then I'll just piggyback one after the other, pushing my learning forward. So I hope that kind of helps to kind of give you an idea of, you know, how to learn and how to move through your journey when you're learning. Krishna, great question. At what stage should you start applying as a front-end developer? Honestly, if you don't have any projects in your portfolio, that should be your step to build your portfolio. But once you have 3 at the minimum, but 3 to 5, that's like the nice balance. Once you have 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio that you could easily talk about, that demonstrate your knowledge of what you're doing, then you're ready to apply. If you don't have a portfolio, you could apply, but it'll be very hard for people to take you seriously. And this is great to come back to the questions that the main video topic, right? So the 3 steps to become a web developer in 2021 or whatever this year may be is to, number 1, learn the stack, learn the languages that you need to know for the job at hand. So I'm going to use React Developer. That's what I did. So I had to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. Once I learned those languages, the next step, step 2, is you have to build projects for your portfolio. You can't skip this step. If you don't have a college degree, even if you have a college degree, if you don't have a portfolio, it's going to be much harder to get a job. So step 2 is to build 3 to 5 portfolio projects. A lot of people ask me, when should I start applying? Well, when you have 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio. And that's the whole point of our Slack channels, to help you guys get there. Build 3 to 5 portfolio projects. And I have a friend who will help you with the next step. So let's say you have 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio and you're trying to work on your resume, or you need a little bit help applying. I have a friend that I refer people to that he'll help you with the resume. He'll help you with other stuff. He has a channel on YouTube. It's CompSci CodeFi. You could check it out. CompSci CodeFi. And he does that final step. And his prerequisite is like, look, when people come to me and I'm going to help them make that final step, get that job, get that interview, they have to know how to code, and then they have to have a portfolio and a resume, right? And then he helps them make their resume much better to get them hired. And if you need to prep for the interview questions, he'll help a little bit with that as well. But that brings us to step 3. So once you have step 1, learn the language that you need. Step 2, have 3 to 5 pieces in your portfolio. Step 3, did I say step 3 again? I don't remember. Step 3 is doing everything that's interview related. If you have to have a good LinkedIn profile, if LinkedIn is available in your area, you have to have a good resume, you have to have a good portfolio website that shows the 3 to 5 portfolio pieces that you made. And this is when you would start practicing interview questions, practicing data structures, algorithm, and literally doing practice interviews to help you do very well when you get your interview. So that's what I would say in terms of applying for a job. Let's see. I see a lot of information all over, which makes people overwhelmed. Just the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript is enough. Jump into React. Don't waste time trying to perfect everything. 100%. That's exactly what I would say. Start there. The biggest thing, procrastination, is this idea of that we don't feel like we know enough. So instead of trying to get better in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React so we could actually build something, we try to add stuff on top of the pile of things we have to learn and not actually learn anything. So the point is, learn the least amount that you need to be able to get a job. And once you get a job, you could learn all that other stuff, right? It's very important. And I'm going to release a video. I did an interview with this guy, Hamza from CompSci CodeFi, and he looked at my portfolio and he gave some good feedback and tips of what we need to do in terms of like getting that initial job. So keep an eye out open for that video. Well, thank you, The Linguist. Our community project is awesome. I have learned a lot. I mean a lot. My first completed website all by myself. Bro, you're very good at what you're doing. You're right there. And you're like the biggest help. The Linguist is in our Slack channel. He answers more questions than I do, which I appreciate. Thank you, my man, for a lot of good feedback. But that's the whole point of the community, is that when you jump in, we have a lot of different people, different levels, and everybody talks to each other. Everybody works on projects together. And, you know, I would say there are no shortcuts, right? You have to put in the work. There's some people on our Slack channel that put in more work than others. That's the nature. It depends on how much time you have to work on stuff. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a portfolio and you don't have the skill that it takes to be able to do the work, it's going to be hard to get that job. It's going to be very, very difficult. And I don't want to lie to you guys and make you guys feel like, you know, this is something that's very easy to do. I like this one. Man, why do I feel like Paul is an undercover professional elite coder? If you guys knew how dumb I am, you guys would laugh at that statement. And I don't say it to kind of be like, you know, like to learn to code, the truth is not everybody could do it. But at the same time being said, if you knew how like not too smart I am, and that I'm able to slowly make sense of it, and it did take me a while, don't get me wrong, but eventually things start to click. That means like you guys can do it as well. But the caveat being is that it requires work and requires studying and building things. Like if I want to, like I'll give an example, like if I want to put on muscle, I could read all the muscle books, and I have plenty around the house, but notice I'm not that jacked. Why? Because I don't work out as much or at all in a way that's going to make me like gain muscle, right? If you want to build muscle, the books that you read are not going to help you. The YouTube videos that you watch about fitness are not going to help you. The actual lifting of the heavy weight is what is going to help you build that muscle. And it is no different with programming and coding. Everything that you're reading, everything that you're learning, even watching this live stream, it's not going to help you. What's going to help you is the physical work of coding and building projects for your portfolio. And that's why, you know, on our Slack channel, it's like, man, if we're going to do one thing, let's just build a community where people build projects for their portfolio. Because that is the most important thing, because that's a physical proof of the fact that you could do what you are doing. So, super important. What do I use to... I saw that one already. I don't know why. What do I do to take notes on my iPad? I got a present with an iPencil for my iPad, which was kind of exciting. So I use this application called, you could also use any other stylus or your finger to write, but somebody spoiled me, got me an iPencil. But I use this app called, let me look at it, what it's called. It's called Concepts. And it's a great application to take notes, and that's what I use. And a lot of times I just use like notebook and a piece of paper. I just started using an iPad because I don't want to waste paper when I don't have to. Yeah, the best way to learn is to basically force yourself to do stuff from memory and recall the information, which is something that I just recently started to do. And it's something that, you know, I found, even though it's difficult at the beginning, it's something that's been very helpful in helping me learn. And you know what? Once you go a few times between, you know, when watching a tutorial, then closing the computer, and then doing it from recall from your memory, eventually those things that you're able to do on your own, they'll stick in your mind much easier, and they're much harder to forget. Every time I click a comment, it shows the previous one, but that's okay. Anyway, Christopher, is Sass necessary? Once you learn CSS, learning Sass is not that much difficult. There's only like a couple of things that you would have to learn on top of your normal CSS. Basically, what Sass allows you to do is to, man, what's that word? Oh, man, I can't think of the word. See, like, there's certain words in the English language that I forget. But anyway, like when you're doing CSS, regular CSS, you have to do dot class, whatever, dot class, like, and for every new thing you have to do. With Sass, you're basically able to put your class inside those initial brackets. I'm not explaining it well, but you don't. The short answer is to learn Sass after you know CSS is not that difficult. So once you understand CSS, because Sass is extension of CSS, it's very easy to learn. So don't try learning it until you learn the basics of CSS, and it's not required, by the way. So you'll be able to learn it if your job requires you to know it. You'll be able to learn it, but it's not that difficult. Once you know CSS, you'll be able to do it very easily. Can I put the name or the link for the Slack? So I'm going to put my Gmail. I don't know if it'll allow me to type it like my Gmail here, because I know sometimes when you type weird characters, it thinks it's spam. Yeah, so if you send me an email there, it's codingafter30@gmail.com. I'll be able to add you guys to our Slack. And is there a site that has interview questions to practice questions not related to data structures algorithm? I don't know any specific sites, but what I normally do is I just Google stuff. And so like I'll have, like, here I'll type 10 common like React interview questions. And then it will just pop up like, look, we got top 50 React interview questions and answers for 2021. Perfect, exactly. And so that's what I would do, is I would open something like this. And then my internet's super slow, so I apologize that it takes forever. And then I would just go and work my way through here. Differentiate between real DOM and virtual DOM. What is React? What are the features of React? List some of the major advantages of React. Now, this actually is going to be a good article. I'm going to click this star button and save it to come back to it later, so I could read on and do more studying on it and maybe share it on our Slack. Hey, great suggestion. Another thing I do when I study React questions is I go directly to YouTube and I do the same thing. And why would I go to YouTube to do interview questions? And you could do like 10 common React interview questions. And the thing that I like about YouTube is that a lot of times when I'm driving, I don't watch the video, but it's good to listen to it. You know, you listen to the video, you listen to what they're talking about. So when you're doing laundry, you're jogging, or you're mowing your lawn, or you're shoveling snow, whatever it is that you're doing, sometimes I'll just listen to interview questions. And that's like another way that I kind of try to find the best use of my time. So if I'm home at my computer, obviously I'm going to read stuff, look through the answers, because it's just much faster. It's much faster for me to go through this list by reading than it is for me to watch, let's say, like a 10-minute video. But with videos, what's cool is that when you're driving and doing something that's like a waste of your time because you're driving or you're doing laundry, just put on your headphones and listen to React interview questions. And just over time, it's going to slowly sink into your brain. And then by the time you go back and start reading, you're like, what do you understand about virtual DOM? Explain it how it's working. And like, hey, I listened in that YouTube video, and you're going to start to know the answer. But that's just a quick tip that I like to use to kind of help me out. Works well. By the way, those of you who guys are here, I want to say thank you for joining the live stream, because this live stream is for all of us to benefit and reach our goal. But without you guys being here, asking awesome questions, and being part of the community, this channel would not exist. I would not exist. Man, Tech Rally's here. I think he's got to stop trolling. I love Tech Rally. He's got the best voice on YouTube. Tech Rally, man, if you want to jump on and talk more today, we could definitely do it. But stop trolling, bro. You're killing it with the growth. I'm watching your channel, and I'm like, man, there was a time where I was catching up to Tech Rally, and he's just skyrocketed with this. By the way, if you haven't watched Tech Rally's content, go check him out. He does amazing videos, really good guy. And by the way, you know how on my channel I talk about building your 5 projects for your portfolio, and that's what we focus on my Slack channel. He actually does the next step. So if you have a portfolio, you have a resume, but you're still not able to land jobs, he will help you guys out reach that next step. He does that, pretty well. There's another guy that he knows as well, Hamza, who does the similar thing. But definitely check out his channel. Really awesome stuff as always, and it's always great when he's able to jump in and say hello on the stream. And he's always welcome to hop on and have a conversation live. By the way, that invitation is open to any of you guys. If you guys want to chit chat live and you're not afraid of having your face shown in the camera, you could always let me know. I'll send you the link, and you guys could have a face-to-face chat, ask some questions. By the way, if you haven't liked the stream yet, like, because it does help us to, get a wider audience. I listen to Coding After 30 when doing chores. Hey, that's awesome. Thank you. Add into the mix some of those interview questions, you'll be golden. Although, I love the fact that you guys watching me on YouTube and you follow my content, you like my videos, so I hope you're getting a lot of value. But at the same time, don't watch too much of it. If my show interferes with you actually physically coding and building stuff, man, turn that off and go and code and do some cool stuff. But then come back and watch my video. You know what you guys do? When you go to sleep, you could just put my videos on playlist, and while you're sleeping, you could get all those secrets that I share with you in my videos, and will definitely help my watch time. Yeah, Tech Rally is pretty cool. Yeah, Tech Rally definitely has best voice ever. Yeah, smash that like button and subscribe. So, we are kind of all over the place, but that's kind of how these live streams go, because more importantly for me is to talk to you guys and answer your questions than just me talking about it. And so today's video, we're talking about 3 steps to getting your first dev job, and we're kind of giving like an overview. And what's misleading about these 3 steps or 5 steps to do this is people assume that it's easy. No, it's not easy. It's pretty difficult because it requires work. But the 3 steps that I recommend for you guys to focus on is, number 1, if you're just starting out, you need to learn the basic tech that you will use to get your job. So if it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and React, that's what you have to learn. And step 1, if you just stop there, it's not enough. You're not going to be able to get a job unless you're able to build stuff. And that's where step 2 comes in, is building projects for your portfolio. And step 2 is build 3 to 5 projects that you could put into your portfolio. And the final step, step 3, I feel like I said step 3 again. Step 3 is your interview prep, which encompasses you doing interview practice questions, learning data structures and algorithms in the context of what people would ask you in an interview, making sure you have a good LinkedIn profile, and making sure you have a kick-ass resume, and you're talking to recruiters to get yourself a job. But those are the 3 steps that I would say, and none of them are easy, right? They all take time. For me, it baffles me when people say I could get a job as a developer in 3 months making bajillion dollars. And the truth is, it's not impossible, but for normal people, it will take you a little bit longer. With caveat being, if you find a good code boot camp, there's few that are good. There's many that are bad, but if you find a good one and you're committed, meaning like 24/7, that's all you do for the next 3 months, and then after you graduate from the boot camp, you don't wait, you start applying while that knowledge is fresh, you could get a job and you could break into the field for sure. But it's not easy. It takes time. So keep asking questions in the comments. Let me know if anybody wants to jump on live and chit chat. I'm gonna keep saying why, because I wanna try the live feature, because it's always fun. It's good to see people face to face. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing good, by the way. I know we're still in the crazy pandemic times and it's tough, and I hope you guys, your families, are doing as best as you guys can. I hope you're staying motivated to make the choices that help you to transition to the new career and continue to hustle. So, man, I really appreciate all of you guys here. Thank you for joining me. So, Q, great question. What was my main focus becoming a self-taught developer? So, it took me many, couple of years at least to realize that you can't learn everything. And I stopped jumping from one language to another, and I literally committed on learning JavaScript and React well. And I just did enough HTML and CSS to be dangerous with it. And I only focused, and even now to this day, I only focus on React and JavaScript because that's what I want to be known for, and that's kind of my current role at my company. Now, I've been at my company for a year now, so now I'm focusing on new things. I'm learning C# as my back-end language. I think it's a cool language to learn. Not everybody wants to do C# and ASP.NET, and I'm not interested in creating, the full stack apps with, the ASP.NET C#. I'm more interested in just the API side of things, building back-end APIs with C#, and then for the front end using React. But for me, my main focus, like even now, 80% of it is React and JavaScript. And when I was first starting out, I decided 100% React and JavaScript, and that's what I've been working on and focusing on. Now, a lot of places, Chris, are good. Yeah, there are a lot of places that prefer bachelor degrees. Would you bother? Yeah, I would apply. The worst thing that's going to happen, they're going to say no thanks. And then the best thing is going to happen, they're going to reply to you. I would say if you have a kick-ass portfolio with 3 to 5 great projects, apply. And true, there are some companies which have auto, like computer reading your resume, and when they see you don't have a bachelor, they just throw it out. It happened to me. I applied to IBM. But here's the thing. If you know someone at that company, like for instance, I applied to IBM. I didn't get it because the computer just kicked out my resume because I don't have a BA in anything. Or BS. I have a BS on my degree, okay, bad joke. But here's the thing, if you know someone at that company that works there, like my friend who worked at IBM, he's like, Paul, if you gave me your resume, I would have made sure a manager would see it and would at least give you an interview. So if you're applying online, you're just sending out your resume to those companies, and they require BA and you don't have one, yeah, it's going to be hard, bachelor's degree. It's going to be hard. But if you know someone at that company and they take your resume physically or refer you to their hiring manager, there's a chance. But still keep applying. The wider the net you're able to send, the easier it's going to be. Tech Rally would love it be on, or would love to be on, but just a big fan right now. Bro, I'm a big fan. We're gonna have this bromance back and forth. But dude, you're always welcome to jump in on the channel. I love talking to you. The most fun I had. So hey, if you want to jump in, man, I could send you the link. I'm just saying. Yeah, you gotta keep knocking on the doors. Eventually one will open, and that's true. Like, one of the things that a lot of people have to realize is that when you're, whatever you're doing, doesn't matter what it is. It could be pursuing a business venture, trying to become a web developer, or, you know, when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, being the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like instructor I can be, it's that you have to understand that failure and roadblocks is a normal part of life. Just the fact that someone says no to you and you're like, oh, and then you just don't try again. No, that's not how it works. People say no to me. I'm like, oh, whatever. He said no. I just got to get more no's, because every no brings you closer to yes. Like, imagine this. If I would constantly give up, and after every rejection, every no, I would not be at the job that I have now. I would not have my fiance that I have now. And, you know, in certain cases, though, sometimes maybe if you don't feel we're made out for the role, if we stop asking, we stop striving to get in the door. But that's the wrong way to think about it. Instead, it's just, listen, the reason I didn't get this job today is because of this, this, and this. Practice those things, learn those things, and try again. Basically, if you quit, you're never going to get the job. But you got to keep going, keep trying, keep trying. Now, with that being said, I would say that if you can't sit in front of the computer for hours and hours, if you don't like constantly studying all the time, maybe this field is not for you, just being real here. Because sitting in front of the computer most of the time and studying new things, that's going to be part of your job to continue climbing that ladder at your, you know, job and getting to the next position. Maybe then it's like, yeah, but if you just like applied somewhere, like, no, like, spend more time, learn more things. What you have to understand, you cannot tell yourself, like, if I don't get hired by 2-3 months, that means like something's wrong. The fact is, everybody learns differently. Everybody has a different path. It took me 5 years to get the job that I have. Just gonna straight up say it. Some people do it in a year or 2 years, right? It depends on your commitment and what is the price you're willing to pay to get to where you need to go. And obviously there's also element of luck, but keep pushing through, keep trying, keep going. It's super important. So what do I use to network with other developers? So like here we have LinkedIn. Before the pandemic, one of the best ways to do it is to go to meetups. So a lot of people that I met, a lot of the connections I met was through physically going to meetups. Now meetups are not as popular because nobody goes out anymore, but you could probably find some meetups online, and that's what I would recommend, and that's what I would do to connect with developers. Another way, it's kind of like what you're doing right now. Like, for instance, going to YouTube channels and leaving comments on people's YouTube channels, but valuable stuff, and making friends through comment sections. Like, for instance, like I met a bunch of people through starting a conversation in the comments with them, and then being like, hey, like, what do you do? And they're like, I do this, I'm a developer. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And you just make friends like that. But the best way that I found before was doing meetups. LinkedIn is a great one. You know, sometimes like if you just send an email to somebody that doesn't know you, it's kind of weird. But yeah, meetups is a good way because that's what they're for. They're for people to get together, meet each other, learn some cool tech, and make connections. So look up and Google meetups online. I think it'll be awesome. Yeah, so I don't work at a typical company. I'm just going to say that. I work at a small company, and our boss, he basically tries to put on as much responsibility on you as he can, even if you're a junior web developer. To all the people that I talk to about my experience at my job, they say that normal junior dev jobs are much simpler and easier. But with that being said, once you kind of get into the flow of things, the first thing I do is I get in and I pull like the most current code from a repo, from my GitHub, to make sure that whatever branch I'm going to be working on, I have all the current changes. And so that's why if you're building self projects on your own, learn to put them on GitHub just so you get the practice of putting stuff on GitHub. And then when you are working at GitHub, since we're already on this topic, don't just push everything into master branch. You know, if you're working on a specific feature, make a feature branch, so that way you could practice doing like pull requests, even you're by yourself, but whatever, get into a process, and then once you go over your requests, pushing them and merging them into the main branch, just so you get into a workflow of what it would be like in a real company. Because a lot of times when we do our tutorials on our own, we don't think about how important GitHub is, but that's what everybody uses to manage their code. So definitely practice that. So once I pull that code, I look at our ticket board and see what are the things that need to be done. A lot of times it's working on bugs. A lot of times it's working on a feature. And then I will just work on that bug or that feature, basically that task that's assigned to me, and for the rest of the day if I'm able to finish it. And while working on that stuff, surely I will run into something that I don't know. And in that case, I would try to ask somebody. We have few developers that are nice about asking them something, and then some developers are like, just figure out on your own. It's a hit or miss. But a lot of times, like, you'll actually spend time learning something new that you didn't know how to do. And if there's somebody that's not gonna help you, that might be a big part of your day. Like, for instance, I had a situation where I had to do something in C#. C# is fairly new to me, so I had to actually Google how to do this one thing, and it took a big part of my day. And when you start out as a junior developer, a lot of people understand that, and they give you like the time to look things up. But that's basically it. And then at the end of the day, I just commit my code, and then go home. Basically, that's a typical day in a nutshell. We don't have too many meetings. Oh yeah, we do like a daily stand-up in the morning, where basically people are like, hey, what did you do yesterday? Did you have any blockers? No. What are you doing today? Basic thing. So that was like the general idea. And different companies, a different experience. I would say my company is not a typical experience, just because of how much people expect of their junior developers. But I don't want to talk negatively about my company, because it is a job and I'm thankful that I have it. Our software architecture and design patterns is something junior devs should understand before applying, or something they learn. That's something you're going to learn later on your job. Like for me, at my job, that's actually a great question and applies to like the typical day at work, is that a lot of times people will have a pattern that they already created, and your job is to just be able to implement that pattern in the rest of the code, because there's going to be certain things that have very similar functionality using a pre-existing pattern that like a senior dev or someone higher up created, and your job is to just implement it in various spots in your code. So as a junior dev, you won't have to know everything from scratch, and as a junior dev, you're not going to be creating stuff from scratch. Most likely, you're going to be implementing existing patterns that somebody else created. But eventually, as you go into more like mid-level and senior level, that's something that becomes really, really, really important. Q, Paul, I'm a beast at networking. Hey, that's a very important skill to have, and no joking aside, guys, once like learning to code is a very small part of getting a job. Part of it is also not being afraid to sell yourself and be able to present yourself, and basically not being shy talking about to anybody and asking for jobs. Like really, networking and basic sales skills go a long way when it's time for you guys to get your job. Man, Logic, I will write it down. It is going to take some time because my main gig, obviously, I'm a web developer, and gaming is something that I do to kind of like help me kind of take a break. So if I don't have time to work on gaming stuff, like I probably won't work on it, but I'm not forgetting it. It's just going to be like a slow process for me, because if I have unfinished web dev stuff, and I'm still have enough brain cells to devote to my web dev stuff, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm definitely working on it when I have free time, and it's right here. It's right here. I'm just trying to kind of scope it down and have that conversation with you. But we'll definitely do it. Logix, by the way, has a great YouTube channel where he showcases some of the cool game projects he built. Really cool stuff. You should definitely check it out. So yeah, man, thank you guys for joining me. I can't thank all of you guys enough all the time. The reason why I thank you guys so much time, because at the end of the day, I'm some dude on the internet, And without you guys, this live stream would not exist. We wouldn't have as much fun if you guys didn't ask these excellent questions and stuff like that. So really appreciate you guys. And let me guys know like where you guys are in your web development journey. Let me know how long you guys have been studying. What are the difficulties you're having? Because I like a lot of your questions, but I do want to hear about like where you guys are at. What one thing you guys working on right now? What are you studying? What obstacles are you hitting? Because I do want to make sure that yes, we're having fun at this, live stream, but I do want to make sure that we also talk about some value that we could bring to you guys and help you guys some more. When you were learning on your own and got your first job, what were your main languages you learned when you got the job? So it was exactly the things that I've been talking about. It was React and JavaScript. So basically the role that I got, I had HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React under my belt. When I got hired though, my boss was like, look, we are a small company and we do ASP.NET for our back end. So I'm going to hire you, but you should be willing to learn, C# on the job. And I was like, hey, that's perfectly fine. And that could be a case like when you're getting hired. That's kind of like what I want to say. When you know something really well, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, and you're able to build stuff, that's why I keep talking about 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio. And you could showcase that when you come in, kind of like I did at my company. My boss knew that since I already know one programming language kind of well, he's like, that means he is able to learn, and that I know he's going to learn the second language that he needs. So I was able to learn C# on the job, and that's something that a lot of us do once we get hired and keep working on a job for a little bit. We start pick up extra things, but you don't need to know all those things at once. So that's why I kind of say, focus on one tech stack that's common in your area to be able to get a job. So for me, it was like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that's kind of like what I did. And only now, after I've been working at my company, now like officially I say that C# is my second language that I'm learning. Yeah, so guys, keep those comments coming. I do like want to hear where you guys are getting stuck, or where you guys are on your journey in coding. What are you guys working on? Or if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, it is Friday night. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? So my goal, so I'm 40 years old right now, and my goal is like, okay, I want to work as a web developer, as a software engineer for my next 10 years. And then when I turn 50, I want to, or by the time I get to 50, I want to have some sort of, programming, coaching business on the side where I'm teaching, doing courses and tutorials, and probably focusing on teaching like teenagers and future generation into becoming, like software engineers. So I definitely want to get into teaching. And I'm pretty sure like maybe in a couple of like 2 years when I feel more confident in coding, I will start doing some tutorials and courses and stuff like that. But that's the main goal. In 10 years, get to a point where I had enough experience as, software engineer to be able to have a side business where I'm teaching coding, and at 50 be able to transition to like a management role where I manage other developers. So that's my goal, for at the moment, and things could change, like you got to stay flexible, but that's kind of ideally what I want to happen. Ideally, that's where I want to go. Arnold's building a cooking resource website with CSS and HTML, trying to put an H1 in a chef knife container design. The page is harder than coding it for me. Hey, that's where we at, and so work, one step at a time. And you know what? This is a good base. Once you're able to finish that CSS and HTML project, and then you could start focusing on what kind of JavaScript basic functionality you're able to add into it. And if you were here last live stream, I showed you some of my first projects that I built, and you know, like I'll do this right now too, because it's fun for me to show you broken projects that don't work. And the reason why I do this is I want to show you that it's nobody ever starts from this idea like, oh my god, my first project was amazing. Like half these projects that I have, at least on this like account, they don't even work, you know. And when you're building your first project, it's like they're not going to be perfect, and with every step, with every iteration, you're going to get better and better. Like this project probably doesn't work, so let's not look at it. I want to see something that's a little bit more like super simple. Yeah, like I don't even know what this is. I don't even know what this is. All right, so yeah, this is like what and this was not, by the way, this kind of project, and my internet's slow, so I apologize. Very basic sign-in form. I actually used, I think, like Bootstrap for this, or Materialize. I don't remember. I didn't even like do the HTML, like the CSS from scratch. And let's see here. You could sign up. You could log in. So there's two forms. And by the way, this was not like my first project. Like this is like pretty, but that's all it is. It's just a form. It's not even complete. It doesn't do anything. I'm sure I could log in somehow, but it probably won't work at this moment. Let me try to sign up. If it even works, I don't remember. But the point is, I want to show you some of these unfinished projects, because that's the facts. This is the truth. Like a lot of people that start working at stuff, they think that from day one they're gonna make these amazing projects, and the truth is you're gonna be making super simple stuff. I don't even know it's signed up. It did something. Hey, it works. So wow, this one is actually works. So I just created like a user and sign up. What's crazy about it, the user that I created with a fake email, I guess it doesn't matter if you put fake email. So yeah, this is all this app does. You're just able to like just log in. Oh, I see. I could edit notes. Does that work? No, it doesn't. But the whole point is, look how simple this is. It doesn't even have to be functionalities. But you know what this is? It's an unfinished project. And you know what's crazy about it? Not, like I would never put this on my resume because it's total crap. But what's even more amazing, the stuff that I learned by building this simple, stupid project gave me understanding of programming a little bit better, a little bit more, to allow me to make something much better next time. So the failed project that I just showed you led me to a slightly less crappy project down the road. I showed this last live stream, but like I'm gonna show it to you guys again. Like the broken music player, I gave up trying to recreate this. That this project's so bad that I even named it broken music player. By the way, this graphic in the background, it's a it's a GIF. This is nothing. Don't even worry about it. But this should play a song, and when I play a song, the graphic should be here, and it's not even working, right? Again, completely failed project that it's not gonna impress anybody. But you know what? You know what's cool about that project? I didn't care. I tried building something even though I failed at it miserably. But again, the few things that I learned in that project helped me to learn a little bit more, get a little bit more comfort, so that my other projects moving forward were starting a little bit better. Like this one is still crappy, and this should be like should be like a mobile view. So let me shrink the screen here because it's for a phone. But this app here, and you see like you have a little navigation, it's a little bit better. So as you see, guys, my crappy failed projects are starting to learn a little bit, starting to get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But that's the whole point. If you don't start making the crappy projects first, you're not going to be able to get, you know, to more complex projects. It's not that you're going to build an amazing complex project right from a very beginning where things are just going to work. Here's another project I built. This is a great one if you like drinking. So this is basically connects to an API where you're able to like find recipes for drinks. Let's do White Russian. So see, it shows in real time, finds the beverage for you. You get more information, and it basically shows you how to make the drink. So this is a React project that connects to an API. But the point is that you need to start slow and don't care about the idea that you're making crappy projects. Don't worry about it. And with time, as you get better and better, your project's going to get better. But if you're not making crappy projects, you're never going to get to better projects, because nobody just makes awesome projects from the beginning. You know, nobody. People just start one step at a time, and that's how you guys get better. So here's a React project. This one is not done. I'm still working on it. But this is a React project, uses an API where you could like look up countries with COVID cases, and it'll show it to you guys. But see, every project gets a little bit more complex, a little bit more complex. As you guys put in your time, you put in your work, your project is going to get better. I just wanted to show that, guys, to show you that I didn't start making kick-ass projects. I still make a lot of crappy projects. And hopefully I will never put any of those crappy projects on my portfolio, and I will only put the best projects at that time that I made. And if I make a better project, I will replace my less better project with the better one, right? If that makes sense. So the point, you have to iterate over time. And little by little, your skills are going to get better. You guys are going to improve, and you guys are going to get to where you guys need to go. So I just wanted to kind of show that to you guys, so you guys know the facts that it just takes work, it takes practice, and it's just working through like steps by step. And with what you learn today, you're going to remember tomorrow, and then what you learn tomorrow is going to keep building forward, and then you're going to get to a point where you're able to make more complex applications, you know. Yeah, I got to get back to Austin for sure. I'm actually making my way back on the 27th, I think. So I will definitely be there either at the end of this month or the beginning of April. So that'll be like exciting, and it'll be good times. Yep. So guys, you know, always amazing to have you here. Let's do another 15 minutes of chit-chatting. So let's do some questions. Let's do some... You guys could ask questions about anything that you guys like. Let's have the last 15 minutes of fun. So, Q, I would strive for the least amount, like 3 projects. And the magic number, like I talked to a bunch of people, they're like 3 to 5 projects is good. So definitely want to have 3. And what I would recommend is, I mean, it depends what your stack is, what you're looking to get a job in. But for me, it was like a basic HTML and CSS website. Then the second would be something like that COVID app that I'm working on currently. It's a React application that showcases your ability to connect to an API. It doesn't have to be that fancy, but you basically want to showcase that you understand how to go connect to an API and get data from the API and display it in your React application. And then the third app, if you were only going for 3, should be something that allows you to showcase that you understand authentication. You don't have to create the authentication by yourself from scratch. You could use like Firebase, or you could use Strapi, whatever it is for your backend that makes it easier. But you should have an application where users are able to authenticate and create an account. And then you should be able to have the basic CRUD application. So let's say it could be a blogging website where a new user could join, and then they could create a blog. They could, update the blog, or they could delete the blog being signed in. So if the user's authenticated, they could do all those things. And if they're not, they can't. So being able to showcase. So if you have that as your 3 projects, that's definitely a great start. And you could start applying for stuff, when you have that in your portfolio. And I would literally say, unless you have 3 projects in your portfolio that you could easily talk about, in the sense that if you show that project during an interview and someone's like asking you questions about it, you should be able to talk about the code that you use, why you did the things that you did, so you literally sound like you know what you're doing. And unless you don't have at least 3 projects, I would probably keep working on your portfolio before applying. I think that's like super important to make sure that you have that in your portfolio. And then after you have those 3 projects, that's when I would start focusing on the interview prep and stuff like that. And yeah, when I get back to Austin, I would like to create some online meetup or some local meetup to be able to do stuff. And I know like Austin used to have a lot of like meetups, and I don't know like if there's meetups that's still meeting. One of my friends, he used to manage a meetup. I'm trying to convince him to do one live on just like online. But yeah, there's Free Code Camp, I think, had a group in Austin, and that's something I'd be curious to see if they're still going on, if they're meeting on Zoom, or if they're doing anything. But yeah, yeah, so ask some more questions. Don't be shy. We'll do like another 10 minutes here, because I definitely want to hear about what you guys are doing. I keep saying it all the time because I truly want to know about what you're doing to make progress in your goals. Like, I really to be honest, like watching my streams for no reason like makes no sense. Like, and honestly, like I would do the stream if it's 1 person here, 100 people here. But what's more important than me doing the stream is this idea that you find motivation from having me, some idiot online, be so excited about programming that you guys, and being honest with you about it, that you guys go home and you build stuff, you code stuff, and you really hustle to get your job. Like, you know what I mean? So this is what this channel is about, is to get you guys excited, make you guys move forward. And for those of you that you guys still here, we keep talking about the 3 steps to get hired, and the second step is building 3 to 5 projects for your portfolio. So if you guys are interested, you can email me at codingafter30@gmail.com. We have a Slack group where the whole main purpose is to help you guys build your portfolio. And so I don't hold like your hand per se in the Slack group. You have to do the learning on your own. Like I do help answer questions, and the community helps answer questions, but we're not going to build your portfolio for you. That's what I mean. But the whole point of the group is everybody that's in the group, by the time you guys are done, you have 3 to 5 projects in your portfolio that you could confidently talk about, and then you're ready to apply. And that's something that I would say is super important. So, because if you don't have a portfolio, if you're self-taught, it's going to be very difficult to get a job, because you have to have proof of that you know what you're doing. No one is immune to that. I'm not immune to that. I am building rebuilding my portfolio again to showcase the things that I currently do, to be able to get my next job. And maybe once you've been in the business for 3 years and you've worked for some awesome companies, maybe your portfolio is not going to be as important. But the truth is, you do need to have something that showcases that you know what you're doing. There's no secret. There's, in terms of like magic
pill you could take or a formula that will help you to just shortcut the process of putting in your time and your work. And that's kind of like with anything in life that's worth doing, is that you guys have to put in the work, put in the time, put in the hustle, and do the work. Like, just like I can't build muscle without actually physically lifting weights, you can't become a developer without, actually doing the coding. So anyway, guys, if you guys don't have any more questions, we could finish the live stream here. Have to wake up early tomorrow. Hey, how's it going? Joining us at the end of the stream. But great to see you. We're actually gonna finish the stream today at 1:30, a little bit, like in a couple of minutes here. Been going on for a good hour and a half. I do have to wake up early tomorrow, but you'll definitely be able to see this live stream on replay. Glad to see you here. But I am taking like the few last questions, so let me know in the comments the last ending remarks. And then, we'll do the last question, last comment, and then we'll send everybody on their way. Yes, React developer, I found CSS is hard. Elbow cuff. Yes. CSS could be a little bit tricky, and it's tricky if you haven't built like 2 to 3 things with it. And here's the truth about CSS. Like, you can't know everything you need because you don't know what you don't know when you're building something. So you might know just enough HTML and CSS to do some basic styling, but then you're like, at one point you're like, man, I want to make sure that only the first element or the first nth child, it has this styling. And you like start Googling stuff and you're like, oh, what are pseudo selectors, or how do they work? But that's the beauty with CSS, is that you could learn it as you go. What I would say is, once you do like one good HTML and CSS course online, that's more than you need. And then just practice building stuff and look stuff up that you don't know. But yeah, it is definitely React is, as a React developer, you need to know CSS and obviously HTML. And yeah, it's not easy. It's hard. It took me a while to get the hang of CSS. But like I said, the beauty of learning to code is that when you struggle with something that you don't know, just focus a little bit more time on that one thing. And once you get that one thing that is, let's say you have something that you're trying to build and there's some CSS that's preventing you from moving forward, learn just enough to move forward. Like, I have a friend who's a physical therapist, and he's like, hey, a lot of people like ask me about like, all these different exercises and, what should I do to have healthier back? And he literally goes to me like, listen, out of like 20 things that you might be having trouble with, pick one thing that stands out the most. So let's say your React knowledge is here. Let's say your JavaScript is right here and your CSS is here. Just focus on CSS to get it to at least your level of React, and then go back to doing React. So you don't have to try to do everything at once, but what I would do is basically focus on the things that are blocking you. Like for me right now, it's not CSS and it's not React. There's actually some of these complex JavaScript concepts that I'm trying to understand more. So that's why I'm spending part of my time right now learning. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's kind of how you work it one step at a time, move forward, move through it. Yeah, so anyway, guys, I want to thank all of you guys who were here and made it on a Friday. I know this stream was a little bit quieter, but no matter how quiet the streams are, I'm always going to be here every Friday. I'm also trying to find another time that's at a better time slot, that will allow different people that weren't able to make it this late. Really depends where you live. But I want to thank you guys all for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. And I'm really happy to share these live streams with you, talk to you guys. Because at the end of the day, without you guys, without your support, I'll be some random dude online. And at least this way, you guys coming in, we're having fun. I hope you guys getting value from the content that I'm creating. And the truth is, switching careers, learning to code is very difficult, and like recently, past couple of weeks, I haven't been putting too many YouTube videos on, and the truth is because I'm busy studying to code. I'm learning new things, and sometimes I have to focus on the actual work of coding, and everything else has to be secondary, like Netflix or even making videos for this YouTube channel. But I'm looking to get back on track. So guys, with that being said, I just want to thank you guys. Say it was a lot of fun. Have a great rest of the night or morning, and have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys all next time. So it's great chatting with you guys. Have a good night. Take care.